in January, and it was a successful vote. And so now what that means is my position as being elected treasurer goes away in February. And the city council, whether they appoint a treasurer or combined treasurer collector, those conversations are still happening. But we at least have a path forward. And so now that the treasurer's position has changed, all of those other changes can start falling into place. And so that's exactly what we're working on now. And that is the real, impetus behind the Municipal Modernization Act of 2025 is to, really start. It's a bold package. Some might think it's a little aggressive to do so much at once, but really, we're trying to clean up, 30 plus years of mismanagement, and trying to strengthen the financial foundation of the city. So yes, that includes creating a CAFO position. That includes creating a comptroller position. That includes reorganizing the way the treasurer's office currently functions, combining treasurer collector, and really having a more streamlined approach where each department is responsible for a specific workload, and there's no real kind of gray area over who's responsible for what. And so this is the boring side of government. It's the kind of stuff that people might not get too excited about, but it's some of the most important functions in the city, right? Because if you think about it, who's going to come to work if they're not getting paid? And how do you pay people if you don't have the money? And how do you make sure you have the money if you don't know what you're supposed to be getting? You don't know if it's in the bank account. How do you protect yourself from fraud if you don't have a really solid financial operation? In any municipality, it doesn't matter how large or small, and really this same thing could be said for any kind of organization, but specifically when we talk about governments and we talk about the awesome responsibility of that we have as public servants when it comes to people's tax dollars and the money that we receive and the work that we have to support. We're 24/7 operations, so police officers aren't able to respond to calls. Firefighters aren't able to respond to fires. The DPW crews aren't out picking up trash, and tree workers aren't able to clear the roads in the middle of a storm if we don't have the funds necessary to make that work happen. And so that's why, the time is now, and why we're really trying to make this push.
Yeah. And how long do you think it's going to take for this to make the government more efficient and kind of fix the problems that you've had in the past?
Nothing's going to change overnight. Even if all these things were to start on July 1st, there's still a lot of cleanup work that needs to be done. But the way it's being designed right now is something that is going to be strong enough to build on, but also provides enough flexibility for us to pivot as necessary. So, what that means is, it's going to take a little while, but what we work in fiscal years. We look at things in fiscal years. So our fiscal year starts on July 1 of any given year and ends on June 30th of the following year. That's the fiscal year. And so we want this to start on July 1, which would be called fiscal 2026. And with the hopes that by the time that first year closes out, that all of the previous issues have been addressed and cleaned up, and that the entire city and its finance team are able to start moving forward, and then not have to constantly be cleaning up messes, not have to constantly be going back and doing things. So, we expect it to take a little bit of time, but our hope is that if If things go according to plan right now, and we can get the right people in the right positions, that by next year, we're gonna be in a much better position than we currently find ourselves in.
All right. And what do you think the benefits and drawbacks of this are, and like why are you guys starting this in the first place?
Yep, great question. So, there's, some of the benefits I already touched on as far as, helping to have a modern, financial organization to support everything else in the city. But there is a monetary component to that too. We actually project that if we had this plan in place, in year one, we're going to save a little bit of money, but by year two, we start seeing some pretty significant savings in the budget, and that's because right now, because we need support, we're paying people to come in and do some of the work that we should be able to do ourselves. And so there's a cost associated with that. So if we're not having to pay for those vendors, those third party folks to come in and help us to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, that's going to be a cost savings, full stop. And that is going to be a benefit to the taxpayers, and it's also going to give the mayor and the council more flexibility to invest in other departments. So that could mean better park maintenance. It could mean more officers on the street. It really could mean anything, because we're not dedicating so much money and time to things that will be cleaned up once we have this in place. The drawbacks are, there's always unknowns. This takes a lot of time. It's taken us a lot longer than we've wanted to get this done. So, a lot of those things that, are kind of messy have continued to be messy. We haven't been able to focus as much time on cleaning those things up because we've had to spend so much time and effort on getting things cleaned up. And, and quite frankly, change is scary. People don't always like change. So, when you start talking about reorganizing an office, moving people, either physically to a new office space or under a new department head, people not knowing who their boss is going to be in a few months, those things scare people, and it can have an impact in work. So those are some of the drawbacks, right? But those aren't the types of things that should stop anyone from trying to improve a system, right? Things are going to get messy, but if you know that you're doing, if you know you're doing it for the right reason, and you're going to have the results that you need to have, you got to push through. But those are some of the drawbacks, and those are some of the things we're facing right now. When it comes to people's reaction to the change.
Just like Mr. Casey said, the change to the treasurer's position was the first domino to fall.
An elected treasurer is not guaranteed to have experience or education in this field of work, and though it has worked for years, times have changed. An appointed treasurer will have to go through a process just like the one used to appoint a superintendent to a school district.
This ensures that the best, most qualified person is put into the position.
The treasurer's job is to oversee the collection of revenue, invest the money, and monitor cash flow to pay bills.
A CAFO is going to oversee all financial matters, and an auditor will manage all records and make sure that the state has enough money to do what they need.
Mayor Garcia's plan is set to take full effect as of July 1st this year. The main idea for all these changes is to make the town of Holyoke more financially efficient.
And that concludes today's episode. Great thanks to behind the scenes manager and the spokesperson Alyssa, and thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.